Welcome to How Can I Keep From Singing? The podcast that explores the power of people singing together. A little bit about the how-to, a little bit about the why. Every week we interview a different song leader or thought leader to learn more about how this ancient and powerful way of being together can be even richer in our lives. My guest this week is Kate Munger.
Where I am can be holy forest. Anywhere I am.
I have known her for something like 40 years, which is unbelievable, although we're rarely in the same space at the same time. So Kate Munger has been passionate about community singing since she was 8 years old at Girl Scout camp and has led community singing now for over 45 years. In 2000, at age 50, she founded the first of now over 200 threshold choirs around the world. Today at 66, she's retired from running the threshold choirs and has returned to her passion of singing at the bedsides of people who are dying, who are in comas, with folks who are incarcerated, and more recently at protests, where her growing collection, Songs to Protect Democracy, called Hate Has No Home Here, are adding harmony and spirit where citizens are gathered to protest our president and his band of criminals. She's a popular speaker among palliative care and prison reform professionals at conferences and is a gracious, skillful musical host and choral director whose joy is reminding us that we are singing beings, bringing community singing back to the community. A composer of hauntingly beautiful melodies and harmonies, Kate compiled the moving, widely sourced, and immense Threshold Choir repertoire and produced all 3 Threshold Choir CDs, Listening at the Threshold, Tenderly Rain, and Walking Each Other Home. Kate knows that this work is deep and serious, and she offers a fresh, lively, sometimes irreverent, perhaps more than sometimes, yet always relevant perspective. So Kate, welcome to How Can I Keep From Singing? I'm so delighted you could join me today for this conversation.
Thank you, Stuart. I need to correct one thing.
Yes.
I am 75 at this
Oh, 75.
point.
Okay.
Not 66. That was my mistake.
It's an old introduction, maybe. I don't know. So,
I think so. My mistake.
yeah, well, your spirit is somewhere around 20, I think. So that's what matters.
I'm really glad to be with you, Stuart. Thank you for inviting me. This is probably my favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's start sort of back early on. Talk a little bit about how you first experienced the power of singing together. Girl Scout camp, as perhaps, or something else. Maybe some kind of experience or moment that you remember, or ongoing activity that you were part of.
Well, like it says in the introduction, Girl Scout camp, I remember coming back to my tent from a campfire and thinking, it doesn't get better than this. How can I have peaked at 8 years old? That same summer, I heard for the first time Ronnie Gilbert's voice. And you can hear in my voice the reverence that I hold Ronnie Gilbert in. Of course, Ronnie and Pete are the stars in this lineage. Ronnie got to be a very dear friend at the end of her life. And watching her throw her head back and just sing was a pivotal experience for me. And while I don't have a soloist's voice, I do have an adequate choral voice and a voice that's adequate for singing lullabies to my son or any baby. Ronnie was a tremendous influence. My mother was also a singer. I didn't realize how much until after she died, which is a tragedy for me, but I give her so much gratitude for the way she nurtured my music as I was growing up. When I had the idea for the Threshold Choir, which was in 1990, I didn't quite have all of the skills that I needed, so I pretended to be a music teacher in the public schools for 10 years. And I learned to read music and I learned to write music because I helped the kids write their own songs. That was the smartest way to learn to notate music, was to notate second graders' songs.
Let me back up a little bit before we get too far along, because there's so many questions I'd like to ask. The
Sure.
first is to go back to those early years. What are some of the songs that you remember singing that you could just sort of get your voice and your teeth and your body into that had some power right away?
Odetta's song, Hangman, Hangman, Slack Your Rope. Oh my God. That's my favorite song in the world. And then I was a big Zombies fan. Tell Her No. Loved that song. Anything Pete Seeger sang, anything. And Joel Gilberto. I first heard him when I was 8, the summer I was 8. I've always loved the simplicity of his voice and the clarity and the, I don't know, essential sadness of life in his voice.
You said that you felt like when you started the threshold choirs, and we'll talk about what those are in just a minute, but before we even do that, you needed some skills. And some of those skills had to do with notating music and being able to read music. I'm just guessing that some of those skills had to do with encouraging others to sing, which you would certainly learn in a music class.
Yeah, I feel, especially with children, that we get a sense of belonging to a tribe when we all know the same song. And so my music classes were based on singing with embellishments. I mean, there were, when it was mostly a cappella. By the time they were fifth and sixth grades, I introduced guitar and drums. To sing together, it balanced out the kids that were extrovert and the kids that were introverted. And it gave them all a way to be together that I don't think our public schools do very often. And I loved that aspect of it. I really enjoyed teaching classroom music.
How many years did you do that, Kate?
10.
Well, because we've talked about it a little bit and people may not know, let's talk about the threshold choir. Could you just give us some history and, of course, what it is to be a member of a threshold choir?
My first experience singing at a bedside happened in 1990 with my friend Larry, who was dying of HIV/AIDS. And I was asked to fill in a volunteer slot for a day. And in the morning, I did chores. I organized his quilt fabrics and did the dishes and weeded. And in the afternoon, I was asked to sit by his bedside. And he was comatose and agitated. Watching that was very difficult, and I was terrified. I was 40 years old, and I hadn't had much exposure to people that were close to their death. So I started singing, and I sang a song that was a power song for me by a woman named Gail Vale. It's called Hello Moon, and I sang it for 2.5 hours. The minute I started singing, I watched him relax. And as he relaxed, I relaxed. We went back and forth until at the end of 2.5 hours, not only was I in an altered state, but he was very calm.
Can I stand here for you?
You're listening to How Can I Keep From Singing? My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today is Kate Munger.
Not need words, we may not need songs, we may only need our two hearts beat.
And I left that experience knowing that I had given him the best gift I personally could give him in the moment. I had experienced the collaborative joy of singing with or to someone. And I thought other people would be interested in doing this. I had been doing community singing up until this point. So that's where I started, in my town, in the Bay Area, March of 2000. And by the time 5 years rolled around, we had 500 singers in the Bay Area and a growing repertoire of songs. Now, 25 years later, we're celebrating our Silver Jubilee anniversary, and we have 200 choirs around the world. British Isles, Germany, couple in Africa, Nigeria, Uganda, Southeast Asia, none in South America, but Mexico, Canada, of course. And it's a beautiful organization that supports people going to bedsides when invited in groups of 3 or 4 to sing a very carefully crafted repertoire of mostly original songs, often having been written after a visit to a bedside where the exact right song had not been written yet. And while I don't run the organization anymore, I have a little threshold choir here where I live in Inverness. We just finished singing for 7 months for a elder threshold choir member who was on hospice in the town next door.
You have this experience that completely unexpected of singing for this man who's dying, and it transforms you and transforms him in some way. And from there, you see that it's a direction that you want to go, not just for yourself, but for others. Now, there is a long, I would say, less organized tradition of people singing at someone's bedside. My father, when he was dying, had people from the church come and sing hymns for him. What kinds of considerations? You're systematizing it, really, if I can use that word. You're creating a repertoire and also doing training on how to do this, because some people may not be comfortable, but there's also some musical training involved. Could you talk a little bit about what those considerations and parameters are?
Primarily, we sing for people who have a deep spiritual practice, but not necessarily a religious practice. Like your father, church communities sing for their people who are dying. But there hadn't been lyrics, poetry about dying and death that was direct and not religious. And we have provided that. There are 600 songs in our repertoire, and angels are mentioned in 2 of them, but I don't think God is mentioned in any of them. There's just a lot of people who have a deep spiritual yearning and no organized structure around that. The Unitarian Church is one example of that kind of structure. But we are so lucky to be invited to bedsides by people who want something a little bit different. They may never have been churchgoers. They may not have a specific religion, but they want to honor this passage, this important part of life that we all get to, and there should be music about it. There should be singing about it.
Part of what I'm hearing you say is that you have songs that address in very gentle and uplifting ways, I'm sure, but dying, which is a topic that's generally not something we all want to sit around and discuss. So there's a way of being direct, that we are here in a room with someone who's dying. We're not just singing happy songs to distract you. And in the process of singing, I'm sure there's a deepening that goes on both among the singers and among the person that you're singing with. Could you maybe just give us an example of just maybe a couple snippets of songs or lyrics, the sorts of things that you're talking about? I think people would appreciate hearing something here.
Sure. I want to add to something you just said, too, and that is a lot of our ministry, and I use that word on purpose, is to help families relax and stop swirling around and cleaning and cooking and chopping, and have them understand that it's okay to sit at a bedside and let a tear or 5 trickle down your cheek. The song that comes to mind when you ask that question first is a song I wrote called You Are Not Alone. And it goes, you are not alone. I am here beside you. You are not alone. I am here now.
You are not alone.
You're listening to How Can I Keep From Singing? My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today is Kate Munger.
You are not alone. We are here now.
Another one that comes to mind, and I won't sing the whole thing, but we are all just walking each other home. We are all just walking each other home. home, and that's all I'm going to sing about it. That's lyrics from Ram Dass.
We are all just walking each other home. We are all.
You are listening to How Can I Keep From Singing? My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today is Kate Munger.
We are all just walking each other home.
This experience is partly about the songs, the repertoire. It's partly about the personal experience of sitting there and just being present at a time that is, transitional. Kate, can you talk a little bit about the singing together? You don't train people to go individually, I know. So you've got 3, 4, maybe 5 people at the most coming. How does that work? How do you get people to work together or to create that sound? What are some of the things that you have in mind when you're talking with folks about doing this?
Well, first of all, we rely on the shiver. When I talk about the threshold choir, people will get the shiver, and it's a reliable way of determining whether these folks are good candidates for bedside singers. The other thing we're looking for is people with choral singing experience, not solo experience, because the defining aspect of a voice singing at a bedside of someone who's dying is lack of ego and offering their voice as a prayer. And the balance and blend between the 3 or 4 voices at a bedside creates the prayer, creates the sacred atmosphere. No voice sticks out over the others. It's the best quality of choral singing that I know of.
I think that is exactly what's interesting to me about these conversations is where the ego falls away and you can hear your voice maybe, but it's in the midst of all this other wall of sound, to use this Phil Spector term.
And you are using your listening capacity as much as you're using your vocal cord.
So how do you work with people on that?
One specific way that I do it in a workshop situation is I'll ask for 3 volunteers to come into the center of the circle. They know the song, they've just learned it or they know it well. So 3 people on a part. Our songs are often just 3 parts. And then one by one, I'll ask one person from each team to go sit down. So then we have 2 people singing on a part. And then one person from each team sits down and we have 1 person on a part. And that gathering intensity is helpful. I also remind them all the time that you have to be able to listen to other voices. And people understand that this is how to get there. So they're so willing. I don't feel like I have almost ever had to say, let's go for a little more blend here.
Tone it down there a little bit. We know you have a beautiful voice, but part of what community singing is about is less emphasis on the personal voice, as you've talked about. In other conversations I've had, for example, Ruth Pelham talked about singing with people, and her phrase was kind of sing anyway. Now, I don't think that's quite what you're talking about, because you do want a certain quality. It's not just people doing whatever, but there's a mix, a blend sort of between professional, beautiful voices, King's Choir of Cambridge or something, and people just on the street kind of doing whatever. So you're somewhere sort of in the middle where you do have certain expectations about how you want it to sound.
And we use humming as a gauge for how loud to sing at a bedside, because when you're humming a tune, you can't really get much volume. And that really helps us draw a mean average loudness for all the singers.
I never thought of that. That sort of the hum sets a volume level. It's not louder, softer, whatever, but
because we sing very close to the person who is in the bed dying. We like to recreate the distance between a mother's mouth and a baby's ear. So we might be 18 inches away from the person's head, and we want to sing very softly.
To me, that just from the outside, there'd be certain discomfort singing that close to someone.
Well, think about a parent singing to a baby. That's the kind of intimacy that we are on purpose stepping into when we are invited to a bedside. Somebody has said, I want to hear angelic voices singing very close, singing songs that matter. And I will say, special choir members are incredible people. They're people that are willing to face the unknown directly many times a week. And I am so honored to know 2,000 people around the planet who do this work and who sing these songs, who give this gift and receive the gift back.
And it's a gift that you have helped make possible through your experience and knowledge and your repertoire. So I wonder if you could talk about creating songs for people to sing together, because many, many songs are written for the solo voice. Songwriters, this is what I sing, and yet you're trying to create something that works for a group of people. What are your considerations there?
I like simple lyrics. I am so delighted to live in the time where Rumi is our most revered poet, and the poets that I relate to are very concise with their writing. And so, for me, very often, a song that I'll write will be a short phrase, walking each other home, 5 words repeated 4 times, with different melodies for each line and different harmonies for each line. I usually write the melody in the middle with a high part and a low part, but I would have to say that the way I'm wired, I find a short phrase and duplicate it. Hate Has No Home Here, the name of my new collection, that's the lyric 4 times for that song. And I got it from a Democratic Party tote bag.
This idea of simplicity seems to me to be central to what it means to sing together. Again, I've seen people in performance who have songs that have these choruses that are, 4 lines long and go all over the place and sing along, and it's just too hard. There is this idea of simplicity and repetition, I think, is the other piece that makes a big difference. Melodies that are not all over the place. Talk a little bit here about, since you mentioned it, politics. We've talked about the threshold choirs and this very intimate, spiritual, beautiful connecting that's happening as someone is dying or in a coma. Politics requires a little bit different. You're not singing 18 inches away from the people who are there. Talk a little bit about singing together in those situations.
The songs I'm looking for to add to the struggle that we're in a life and death struggle here in the United States and have been for a long time. The songs I want to share with people are short, easy to learn, easy to teach, easy to harmonize. I'll give you an example. Here's There's a Light by Bernice Martin. There's a light shining in the night. There's a light shining in the night. There's a light shining in the night. No darkness can put out the light. People could learn that easily.
Beautiful. And what I notice is perhaps a little different is there's a stronger propulsive quality to it. That's
Yeah,
what
we're not going to sing softly.
exactly. We're out here on the street. We want to get a rhythm going as well. Very different from the sort of intimate singing. One more maybe song that comes from that collection at this time of political agony.
This is an old song by my friend Harmony Grissman, written in 1979, and it's called Break 'Em On Down. Break 'em on down, break 'em on down. Break 'em on down, these walls between us. Break 'em on down, break 'em on down. Break 'em on down, these walls between us. Break 'em on down. Break 'em on down, these walls between us. Break 'em on down. Break 'em on down these walls, these walls, these walls between us.
I've known that song for years. I love that song. And I love it partly because it has this unusual kind of rhythm, syntax to it. And yet at the same time, you can get it.
It repeats a couple of times too. That always helps.
Right. Repetition again. What else would you say to someone who wants to sing as part of a community?
I bet you could Google community singing at this point and get a lot of information. In the last 10 years, there's been a resurgence of kind of grassroots community singing. There are a lot of places to have weekends of community singing. I'm going to mention a few names. Some of my favorite singer-songwriters, Melanie DeMore, Lawrence Cole, Becky Reardon. All of these people lead singing either in the context of some political or grief-oriented work. But there's lots of places to sing these days, and I would love to be a resource for any of your listeners if they want to contact me.
But we will have that information available for people. All right, so Kate, so you're going to a group singing event. It's not necessarily threshold choirs or even political. What are 2 or 3 songs that you're going to have in your pocket to be able to teach people, or songs that you think people will already know that can facilitate this experience of singing together?
I probably wouldn't choose something they already know necessarily. The song that comes up, I call Love, Grace, Trust, and it was snatched by Willow Smith and recorded as another song called Home on her most recent album, Empathogen. I live my life in a river of grace. I trust this river will carry me home.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this amazing gift you've given to the world of the opportunity to sing together with people with purpose and joy and depth. Thank you very much for talking with me here today.
Oh, Stuart, it's been my pleasure, and making opportunities for people to sing is my life's greatest joy.
Kate Munger, thank you very much.
My life in a river of grace, I trust this river.
You've been listening to How Can I Keep From Singing, a production of Common Arts. My name is Stuart Stotts, and my guest today was Kate Munger.
River of grace, I trust this river.